When he was happy, he was bouncing around. He loved his cartoons, his music, his lights, and this is a senseless act that could have been avoided.
It started as a routine missing person call, a boy said to have vanished from his front porch. But from the moment the line connected, the story began to unravel, leaving investigators with one lingering question. Why would someone lie about 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐞𝐧𝐭 Jr.? What began as a simple report quickly turned into a tangled investigation, one that would expose secrets no one expected to find. 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐞𝐧𝐭, born on November 1, 2017, to Ashley Johnson and 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐲 Sr. He was their youngest, with an older sister who adored him. In his early years, Herschel brought warmth and laughter into a family that was still finding its way. As time passed, Ashley and Herschel Sr. decided to part ways, leading to limited contact between them. Life moved forward quietly, with each parent focusing on separate paths and different routines. Not long after, Ashley reconnected with Michael Kendrick, a man she had been involved with for nearly 10 years in an on-and-off relationship. Herschel came into the world with a few challenges that required extra care and understanding. But those who knew him say he radiated happiness. He had a way of lighting up a room without ever needing words. His laughter and presence spoke for him. Green was his favorite color, a small reflection of the bright spirit he carried everywhere he went. For most of their young lives, Herschel and his sister were cared for by their grandmother, Missy 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭, in Springfield, Ohio. The children had spent several years with her, moving between a few homes as life circumstances changed. In 2021, Missy was officially appointed as their legal guardian and, as required by the court, regularly submitted updates on the children's well-being. Those reports reflected ongoing family challenges. Their mother, Ashley, was facing personal struggles, and their father, Herschel Sr., had moved out of state. Over time, contact from both parents grew rare. However, by late 2024, records showed that communication between the children and their parents had started again, and Missy was granted supervised visits. Eventually, Missy made the difficult decision to return the children to their mother's care after she could no longer afford to keep her home. Ashley, who seemed eager to reconnect, welcomed them back into her household on Xenia Avenue in Dayton, where she lived with her partner Michael. At first, everything appeared hopeful. Missy believed Ashley truly wanted to rebuild her relationship. With her kids, she continued visiting, often, and remained part of their lives until an unexpected car accident in November 2024 left her needing ongoing care and rehabilitation. She spent time recovering in the hospital and later in a care facility, where she focused on regaining strength. Because of these changes, she needed a mobility scooter to move around and relied more on others for support. The recovery period made it harder for her to visit her grandchildren as often as she wanted, though she continued doing everything she could to stay present in their lives. In May 2025, the probate court formally ended Missy's guardianship, transferring full custody of Herschel and his sister back to their mother. Court records noted that Missy had not filed the required guardianship paperwork, though she later explained that she never received the notices that had been mailed to her old address. The decision was disappointing for her, but she tried to see the positive, trusting that Ashley was in a better place and ready to care for her children again, especially for Herschel, who needed consistent support. What Missy didn't realize at the time was that Ashley's partner, Michael, had a concerning history, something that would later raise painful questions about trust, safety, and the systems meant to protect children like Herschel. Much of Michael's troubled past appeared to stem from his long struggle with harmful substances and poor control of his emotions. In early 2022, Dayton officers were approached by a woman who identified herself as his sister. She told them she had been driving with Michael, Ashley, and Ashley's daughter when his behavior became erratic and unsafe. What began as an argument in the car quickly escalated, prompting her to seek help from nearby police. Officers intervened, and Michael was taken into custody that night. The case, however, did not move forward when key witnesses failed to appear in court. But before we begin, I just want to say thank you to my amazing viewers and subscribers. Your support through likes, shares, and comments means the world to me. Your engagement helps me make these stories even more meaningful. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts.
Records from that incident revealed that this was not an isolated concern. Michael's name appeared in several earlier cases, many of which involved unstable behavior linked to his dependency issues. In 2009, when he was 23, he faced charges related to property damage and an alarming confrontation within his family home. The court placed him on probation, required restitution, and limited his contact with certain relatives to specific occasions. A few years later, in 2013, another report described a troubling outburst in Dayton that left neighbors and police once again involved. Then in 2016, he was convicted of a family-related offense and served several months in jail. His mother, who had been part of multiple prior cases, passed away in 2022, a loss that, according to those who knew him, deepened the instability already present in his life. In the years that followed, Michael's legal difficulties continued. He was arrested for theft-related charges and later served time in prison after failing to meet the conditions of his probation, which required him to avoid harmful substances and maintain compliance with supervision. In 2018, he was again charged, this time for unauthorized use of a vehicle, and spent several days in jail. By the time Michael re-entered Ashley's life, his record painted a picture of someone caught in a long-standing pattern of poor decisions and unresolved personal issues. What seemed like a second chance for him, and perhaps for their family, would later serve as a painful reminder of how easily red flags can be overlooked when hope outweighs caution. In 2020, Michael was placed on probation for several serious charges, including one under Ohio law known as possession while under legal restriction. This statute, similar to rules in other states that limit what certain individuals can carry after a conviction, is designed to prevent further risks and protect public safety. That same year, he faced a separate misdemeanor case after an incident at a women's shelter. Along with this were repeated encounters with police for disruptive behavior, often connected to the ongoing use of harmful substances. Officers noted a pattern of instability that seemed to follow him for years. By 2025, these concerns had become familiar to both agencies and the community. At Ruskin Elementary, where Herschel and his sister attended, school staff reported growing worries about the children's home environment. Several calls were made to Child Protective Services on one occasion, staff described Michael arriving at the school appearing visibly impaired. A teacher told dispatch they had already contacted child welfare officials and were advised to request a police wellness check, prompting another visit before dismissal. Police conducted multiple checks and found the home had food, power, and appeared stable. A third call followed, this time from the residence itself, but was quickly dismissed as accidental. Officers still responded and again found no immediate danger. These repeated reports reflected genuine concern from those trying to help. In hindsight, they serve as a sobering reminder of how early warnings can sometimes go unseen, even when people truly care and try to intervene. In the early hours of July 12th, Michael placed a distressed call to emergency services. He said that while sitting on the porch with his stepson, Herschel, he went inside for just a moment to grab something. When he came back, Herschel was gone. Michael claimed he searched the yard and the nearby street, calling out his name, but there was no sign of the boy anywhere. Moments later, he told dispatchers that a stranger, someone he thought he recognized from the neighborhood, might have gone with him. His account was fragmented and uncertain, shifting between confusion and panic as he tried to explain what had happened. The call itself was difficult to follow. Dispatch records note that Michael appeared disoriented, and his explanation shifted from moment to moment. The dispatcher tried to piece together what was happening, asking where he was, what Herschel looked like, and what direction the stranger had gone, but clarity never really came. Michael's words were scattered, his tone moving between panic and frustration, and it became clear that something about the story didn't add up. By early morning, The Dayton Police Department shared a public notice, asking the community to help locate little Herschel. What began as a hopeful search for a missing boy soon became a heartbreaking discovery that would leave the entire town shaken. When investigators brought Ashley and Michael in for questioning, the tone of the case began to change. At first, Ashley told detectives she had seen Herschel just a day earlier, but her account shifted as the interview went on. She eventually shared that during a recent hospital stay, she received a phone call from Michael. On that call, he told her something no parent ever wants to hear, that Herschel was gone. Ashley claimed she was told his passing had been sudden, something that happened while he was playing with his sister. She described it as a natural and unexpected loss, but to investigators, her explanation raised more questions than it answered. Michael's account differed sharply from Ashley's, but instead of bringing clarity, it only added more uncertainty. He admitted that the day had been tense and that a heated moment took place while he was on the phone. After that, his story became vague. He suggested something had gone wrong. By the next morning, however, Michael said he found Herschel unresponsive, an explanation that raised more questions than answers, especially considering Herschel's need for daily assistance and supervision.
As investigators delved deeper, it became evident that crucial hours, and possibly days, had passed before anyone sought help. What they eventually uncovered suggested that efforts had been made to conceal what had happened instead of reaching out for emergency care. Those choices weighed heavily on everyone involved in the case. In time, Michael led authorities to a quiet area in Dayton, where items belonging to Herschel were found nearby. It was a discovery that confirmed the community's worst fears. He was taken into custody shortly afterward, and the Dayton Police Department shared that Herschel had been found and that an arrest had been made. On July 14th, the police chief held a press conference to update the public on the heartbreaking case surrounding young Herschel. Both Ashley and Michael were taken into custody in connection with his passing. Authorities shared that several charges had been filed as part of the ongoing investigation. While officials avoided going into detail, they made it clear that the situation involved serious concerns and that the investigation had revealed signs of prolonged neglect before Herschel's life came to a tragic end. During the announcement, the chief expressed deep sadness for what had been uncovered. His words carried both sorrow and frustration, as he acknowledged how difficult cases like this are for those who serve on the front lines. He explained that what had initially been reported as a possible missing boy soon turned into something far more heartbreaking once investigators realized Herschel hadn't been seen for several weeks. Teams from multiple departments worked together to follow every lead. Eventually, they located what they believed to be Herschel's remains in a nearby area. The chief emphasized that the case was still unfolding and that his department was working closely with county prosecutors and forensic specialists to ensure that every detail would be handled with care and accuracy. In mid-July, the investigation reached a somber milestone when officials confirmed that what had been discovered near a quiet stretch of roadway was connected to young Herschel. The findings were later reviewed by the coroner, who noted that the condition of what was found made it difficult to determine exactly when or how certain events had occurred. What remained clear, however, was that a child who once filled his home with light and laughter had been gone for far too long before anyone truly realized. Both Michael and Ashley were brought before the court in the days that followed. Their hearings drew significant attention as the community watched closely, seeking justice and clarity. Formal charges were filed, and both were ordered to remain in custody while the case continued to unfold. The proceedings marked another chapter in a story that had already broken so many hearts. Herschel's grandmother, Missy, expressed her deep regret and pain over what had happened. Despite her own health challenges, she vowed to do everything in her power to reunite with Herschel's sister, who had been placed in protective care. Her voice trembled as she spoke about wanting to give her granddaughter the love, consistency, and safety that Herschel had been denied. Days later, hundreds gathered to honor Herschel's life. A memorial walk began at Ruskin Elementary School, where Herschel had once smiled his way through lessons, and ended near the McClure Street Bridge, where people came together to learn and to remember. Flowers, stuffed animals, and handwritten notes soon covered the area, turning a place of sorrow into a space of remembrance. Those who knew Herschel described him as endlessly cheerful, a little boy whose joy could brighten even the hardest day. He had a way of making everyone feel better. His love for light-up toys and his constant laughter became the memories that family and friends held closest. In the weeks following the discovery, Dayton Public School Superintendent David Lawrence addressed the heartbreak surrounding Herschel's case. He explained that school staff are legally required to report any signs of neglect or unsafe conditions, and that, in Herschel's situation, they had reached out to Children's Services more than once. Still, the process became tangled between county lines, delaying the help he needed. Lawrence spoke with visible emotion, emphasizing that the district could not share more until the investigation concluded, but he expressed the school's deep sadness and commitment to cooperate fully. As the case moves through the courts, both Ashley and Michael remain in custody. Authorities have urged patience, promising that every step will be guided by evidence and care. Legal experts explain that while confessions and reports can guide investigators, final charges depend on forensic confirmation, a process that takes time.
In the months after Herschel's passing, questions about accountability grew louder. Advocates and legal teams working on his behalf called for clearer laws to prevent jurisdictional confusion, like the one that surrounded his case. Those close to the investigation explained that Herschel's legal guardianship had fallen between two county systems after his caregiver relocated but never received the proper documents to transfer oversight. With no single agency stepping in to claim full responsibility, crucial opportunities for intervention slipped away. Despite welfare checks and reports made by concerned individuals, officials visiting the home later stated that everything had appeared fine at the time. Representatives for Herschel's estate spoke publicly about the deep sense of injustice they felt, emphasizing that the tragedy could and should have been prevented. They noted that teachers, officers, and neighbors had all raised alarms, but systemic gaps allowed the warnings to fade into paperwork and miscommunication. Herschel, who faced daily challenges and depended on others to ensure his safety and well-being. Those advocating for reform described Herschel as gentle, bright-spirited, and deeply trusting, someone who deserved far more care than he received. They expressed heartbreak that lessons from previous tragedies hadn't been fully learned, vowing to honor his memory by demanding accountability and lasting change within the system, meant to protect the most vulnerable. Their message was simple but powerful. No one should ever be left unseen, unheard, or unsupported again. In the weeks that followed, the case moved quietly from headlines to the courtroom. On July 24, 2025, two individuals connected to Herschel's story appeared before the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court in Dayton. During that session, each of them formally entered pleas, marking the first official step in a long legal process. Ashley Johnson, 36, was charged in connection with her actions during the investigation, while 39-year-old Michael Kendrick faced multiple counts tied to what authorities described as serious mishandling of crucial evidence. The hearing took place before Judge Elizabeth Ellis, who scheduled the next proceeding for August 7th. Since then, however, little has been made public. The court has yet to share any updates regarding the outcome of that hearing, and the case itself has seen further delays. For Herschel's family, each passing week brings both hope and heartache. Hope that the truth will finally be heard, and heartache that the answers remain just out of reach. Meanwhile, Michael Kendrick's legal counsel filed a request to restrict public access to certain case documents, arguing that extensive news coverage could make it difficult to ensure a fair and impartial trial. It's a reminder of how deeply this case has affected not just one family, but an entire community still searching for understanding and accountability. As the legal process moves slowly forward, the memory of Herschel remains the quiet light guiding those who refuse to let his story fade. Those who still believe that truth and justice, no matter how long delayed, will one day meet. In the months following Herschel's passing, the Dayton community came together in ways that spoke louder than words. At the heart of that effort was a small local ice cream shop, Sweet Retreat, which turned compassion into action. Through a community fundraiser, they gathered over $1,200, money that helped create a permanent memorial bench at Ruskin Elementary, the school where Herschel once studied and laughed with friends. The bench now stands as a quiet reminder of a life that, though short, touched so many. Soon after, candles began to glow outside the school. Families, teachers, and neighbors gathered for a vigil, each holding a light in Herschel's memory. Balloons were released into the evening sky, and stuffed animals were placed near the McClure Street Bridge where a growing memorial took shape. It became more than just a gathering place. It became a symbol of unity, grief, and love for a young boy whose story moved an entire town. Eventually, Herschel found his final resting place at Rose Hill Burial Park in Springfield. With the help of donations and the steadfast support of those who refused to forget him, the community ensured that he was laid to rest with the dignity and peace he deserved. And though the days continue to move forward, the heart of this community carries Herschel's memory with it. Proof that even in loss, love can leave something lasting behind. Because sometimes, a community's greatest act of strength isn't found in justice served, but in the love they keep alive for the one they lost. If stories like Herschel's matter to you, if you believe every voice deserves to be heard, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Because every time you do, it helps more people see the stories that should never be forgotten.